Hello everyone, so great to see so many people in here today. I'm Matthias, I head up the Miro Prototypes team, and I've really been looking forward to coming over here and showing you what we have been working on the past couple of months. If you heard the keynote this morning, you heard a lot about how fast everything is moving. But even if we can build things 10 times faster than we used to be able to, we still need to make sure we're actually building the right things. We need to 10x the business, not just our output. And this session is going to go a step deeper into how the Canvas can help you unlock better and faster decisioning on what you should spend your time building. Before we get into all of that, just want to get a quick feel for the room here. So we'd love if you can get your phone out and scan the QR code. You can also go to miro.com/join and then enter this code, MWVBYF. And then help us answer this question, one of 5 opportunities. The question is, what slows you down most between an idea and a validated direction? And the 5 options are: not enough time to explore, getting stakeholders to align on a direction, feedback coming in too late after too much work is already done, visuals that looks too polished and finished from the get-go, and the final one, turning a concept into something concrete enough to actually test. And I think we have a pretty clear winner. This is exactly the image I see every single time I do these, no matter where I do them. Getting stakeholders onto the same page is a massive, massive issue. And I honestly feel it myself every single week. So you're in good company. And it's not only us, even Anthropic, the world's most AI-pilled company, they feel this. The head of growth recently said, we will have AGI and it still be impossible to get 6 people in a room to align. The hardest part about building products has never really been the building, it's been the deciding. It's an alignment problem, and that problem doesn't really go away because tools get smarter and faster. So building used to take forever, right? It used to take weeks, now it takes days, sometimes even hours. And everyone's a builder now, PMs are prototyping, designers are shipping code, engineers are making UX calls. All of this sounds like pure progress and sweet bliss if we told someone 2 years ago this, but all of those handoffs that used to slow us down was the checkpoints where the team came together and someone would say, hey, is this actually the right call? Does this make sense? Does this solve the customer problem? So those moments to pause and slow down are kind of gone. We aren't really thinking as critically about what we ship because it's so fast and it's so cheap. So we're no longer potentially building one wrong thing slowly. We're potentially building 100 things very, very quickly. So the bottleneck kind of shifted. It used to be, can we build it fast enough? And now it's, are we even choosing the right thing to build right now? Or are we, as a minimum, learning from the wrong ones? In the end, it doesn't really matter if it doesn't really matter to our customers and end users, it doesn't really matter at all, even if it is very quick to build. So the question isn't how we build faster. We're already very good at that. It's how do we get back to those moments of checking in, getting into lockstep, of asking, is this actually the right call without slowing down? So how can we accelerate our decision-making together, explore different directions before committing and before it's too late to change direction? So turning all of that individual speed into shared direction. So that's where the Miro Canvas comes in. And the reason why it really works is because it's built for collaboration, and it's built to work exactly where your team works. So we are making sure that wherever your context lives in Confluence, in Figma, in Claude, we can pull it in, we can bring it into the Canvas, collaborate, align on it, and move forward together. So your whole team can explore together and decide together. Once we're aligned, we can hand off with confidence however our PDLC looks like. So really, the right tool for the right task at the right moment. I'm going to show you 3 demos today, and those 3 demos are, let's say, 3 use cases that we see our customers use Miro Prototypes for. The first is rapid prototyping in workshops. The second is evolving existing products quickly and easily. And the third is validating, improving the product, and handing off to other teams. So let's have a look at what that looks like. The first demo here, rapid prototyping in workshops, is really all about making sure we don't have this problem where workshops end with a ton of energy, everybody agrees, everybody's super excited about what we're doing, and then nothing gets built fast enough to actually keep that momentum alive. We get a file a week later, a zipped up HTML, and have to react to that. Or even we're sitting in the workshop, everybody's on their own code editor, and we don't really have a way to actually come around and discuss the different solutions we each vibe coding. So the solution that we built is really to make it super easy to move from workshop to collaborative interactive prototype before the room clears out, using and leveraging all of the workshop inputs you've been working on together, synthesizing those all completely transparently, and let's say you can audit the different steps very, very easily to understand why the outputs look like they do. So let's see what that is. Here I've, on the left side, had a design sprint with my team that we've been working on. We'll dive into that in just a second. You'll see that I've connected that design sprint board to a couple of different formats here. The first is a table, where I've used our AI flows to prompt it to summarize the key opportunities from the design sprint. And this does a little bit, so I'm just going to kick this off from here. So now we are pulling in all of the outputs from this board and synthesizing those into an easy-to-read table where we can come together and see these outputs actually align with what we think. The next thing that will happen is that will flow into a document where we're creating a PRD, where we can get user stories, we can get specs, we can get acceptance criteria, and again, all revisit that and edit it if we don't agree with this output. And then finally, we'll turn that into a prototype over here, where we are also uploading 2 screens from our existing product to inform about the UI structure, styling, and so on. So if we just come together and look at what have we been working on, this problem statement is going to be recurring throughout the demos we're seeing today. Team managers in FlexFund, they have no visibility into their own team's spend and no way to act on anomalies or approve expenses before they reach the finance team. So for that, we've been adding some user context. We've built out a how might we wall. We've put together success metrics, put together customer journey maps, so lots of different assets that we would typically have in a design sprint. And that's now flowing down into our different formats. So here we get our top 10, 11, 12 opportunities and solutions from that. So scored on a RISE framework with a total score. So we easily can see what are the top things we should be acting on here. Real-time spend dashboard with budget tracking and alerts, for instance. That then flows into our PRD, where you can see here it's already streaming in, where we get an overview, what's the problem statement, user stories, feature descriptions, and a lot more. And all of this, once our doc is fully finished, is all editable. So if we disagree with priorities, if we disagree with the user story, we can very easily come in here and remove that or whatever we want to do. Final step, all of this is now flowing into our prototype down here. So this is going to take 3-4 minutes, and while that is quite quick in the realm of a design sprint, it feels like an eternity when you're standing on stage in front of 200 people, however many we are in here. So I have pre-baked from home, if I can find it down here, here we are, this output. Now, just to show, we have exactly the same inputs coming in here, design sprint, table, and doc, and then we have our prototype here. If I open up the format here, we can see we have our prototype where everything is fully editable, right? Hello, London. We can add components from our component library, and we can, of course, continue evolving this with AI if we want to do that with our Sidekick, either edit the screens or add new ones. The attentive person in the crowd will also have seen these blue lines, connector lines, where we can click on any component, drag and drop, connect the different screens, and make it really easy for our team to actually get a feel for what this product experience is. They can run through it. All radio buttons work, input fields work, looks great. And just gives a little bit of life to the actual output, so we easily can get a feel for, does this solve the problem we set out to? The really neat thing is we can also share this with a link here. And this link doesn't give access to the actual Miro board. It only gives access to the prototype, which means we can send it to stakeholders. We can even plug it into usertesting.com or Maze and get some real validation on this flow in just a few minutes' time. So it can move very quickly from design sprint to synthesis into actual assets and visuals that we can test out with end users and stakeholders. Brilliant. That was a quick summary of how we can move from design sprint, synthesis, PRD, and prototype all fully collaboratively on the board next to all of the assets that we're working on. So we have everything together, not split out in different separate tools. What a lot of our customers would then want to do is to bring in something from the existing product that already lives. And that's what the next demo here will look into. How can we bring in existing products and make them part of that project? So a big problem we see with a lot of AI tools is they're all of them are single players who end up sitting and zipping up HTML files, shooting those around, and they give you a super polished, almost finished-looking answer from the first prompt, where early design is more about exploring multiple directions, compare and contrast, do different flows next to each other, and not necessarily committing to the first prompt. So the solution from our side is really to enable you to bring in products wherever they live. If that's in Figma, if it's in coding agent, if it's in Confluence, wherever they sit, we can bring those in and we can involve them with Miro AI, get some quick concepts and mockups together. So our team can come together, discuss those on the canvas, we can implement their feedback and then move on. So let's have a look at what that looks like. Here we have a screen, and this screen is a Figma screen, as we can see down here. It's just a URL from Figma I've dropped on the canvas. And if I want to turn this into a Miro prototype, I just click up here and say convert to prototype. In a minute or so, we're then going to convert this otherwise Figma URL into an editable mockup. I'm not going to show you that since it's a little bit boring for very little, let's say, reward. Let's try it from here. And now it's exactly the same as the output we looked at before, fully editable and so on. The next thing I want to do is I want to bring in a PRD I've been working on in Confluence. So I'm going to open up our Sidekick. I'm going to enter this prompt, where I ask our Sidekick to use the Atlassian connector to grab a PRD that I've been writing and embed that into the board. And we can do this pretty much with all of our favorite tools, right? They're just all accessible here in the Sidekick and under our connectors. And the very neat thing about that is, now we add this here. As we can see, we have all of the information, all of the details to what we are building, user stories, acceptance criteria, all of these different things added, and we don't need to add that as a Miro doc or to the prompt. That all lives in our single source of truth that we can then leverage as context. So if I then, let's say, come over here and I grab this prompt, we can quite simply select the PRD, we select the screen, and ask Miro's AI to implement the PRD in the screen. And what this looks like is, in the prompt here, I don't have to put anything related to user stories where we're actually trying to build. I'm mainly just asking Miro, guiding Miro's AI in how I want it to be implemented. With what happens when we click where, what do we want with the existing style, how do we want the different things to look and feel, and how do we want the default to open up. So really easy way for us to move from screen in Figma, pull in Confluence PRD, and implement that into our screen. So this is going to generate a little while. We're just going to leave this here while and then we'll come back to it and look at the output in the end, instead of me trying to come up with a filibuster for the next 3 minutes. So we can move down here, and just close this one down, and see this is something like the output we will get, where we have our original screen, and then we have our AI anomaly deep dive over here that we just mapped out in our PRD. So this is purely implemented from the PRD in Confluence, where we then have, whenever we are clicking on one of the transactions, this comes up and shows us an explanation for why has this been flagged. What do we need to look at as a manager? So we're getting closer to wanting to get some reactions and feedback from the team here. And what I want to do then is I can quite simply click here on the screen and ask Miro's AI to create a couple of variants to give the team a little bit to react to. So instead of just getting one screen and we ask, hey, what do you think about this one? We say, well, we want to create a couple of variants that speed up the anomaly triage And we probably want variants that focus on layout and visual style. Let's say 1.3. I actually don't think we can continue. We can generate another one here when we have the other one running. We can't have two sessions at the same go, so I wonder if this actually stopped up here. That is on me. But the output from that will look something like what we have over here, where we get 3 variants with, here we have the original one, exactly what we just looked at. Here we have variant 2, where we can see that Miro's AI has focused a little bit on making the AI feed more, let's say, stand out and what we should focus on in our vendor spend. And finally, we have a variant over here that highlights the AI anomalies in a different way. So if you remember, that was the key thing we were asking for, right? And this means that Elizabeth, Luna, Laura, and then Sarah can come together, drop notes on what they prefer, vote on which one they think is the right one, and we can even implement all of this feedback into the screen with sidekicks. So it just makes it very easy for the team to get together, discuss, compare and contrast, instead of this living in one person's file or in one person's editor. So it seems like variant 3 out of 3 is a no-go. Variant 2 out of 3 here has a little bit, it's too busy. They prefer the original one. Awesome. Let's try to move forward with, love that, me too. Right. Let's try to move forward with that then. To our final step, which is how can we validate this and hand off? How can we improve this before we share it with anyone else and get it to the bottom, let's say a state where we don't get feedback on minor usability issues, but instead on the overall strategic fit with our product strategy with the solution we're trying to make. So really make sure that our review sessions doesn't get hijacked by smaller details, but drive the decisions that matter. And we can use our custom sidekicks to do exactly that, where we can build out personas that can critique, that can implement feedback, and really raise the floor of the quality of the prototype before sharing it with anyone else, so we can spend our time on decisions. So if we move over here, I'm going to grab this prompt quickly and open up our Sidekick. In our Sidekick, we have our standard Miro AI Sidekick here. And if I click on usability validation, I now have a custom Sidekick that I've created. And I've instructed it to be a UX expert, where I've instructed him to, what are you doing? What's the format I want? I want a table that goes deep into Jacob Nielsen's 10 UX heuristics, which are good rules for UX. I want you to score it on a severity scale. What's a small problem? What's a big issue we need to resolve? And a bunch of other things. And then down here, we've uploaded the UX heuristics to give some extra context for the Sidekick. And this means we can select the screen. We can add our prompt. We just ask it to analyze the screen and provide recommendations. And it's then going to do a deep analysis of that that looks something like this, where we get 18 improvement points, each tied to a heuristic, where we see what's the issue. For instance, there's no visible way to dismiss or snooze items. There's no bulk action capacity to select a number of different transactions and approve those at the same time. And we get severity. How critical is it we resolve this? We get a rationale. Why is this critical? Why is this an issue? And we get, importantly, a proposed solution, where we get a suggestion for what can we do with this. And this becomes valuable. Alone, getting the information is great. Where it becomes really valuable is when we can improve our prototype with it. So if we select these two, we open up our Sidekick again. I'm just simply asking our Sidekick to implement recommendations that have severity 4 from the table into the screen. So before I accidentally stopped our generation with the variants. So let's leave this one here. And while this is taking, let's say, probably 2 minutes time to generate, we can come back to this when, in just a few seconds, when we can have a look at here what the final output will, resemble. Down here, we have our recent transactions. So you can see that now we can do our multi-transaction select and approve those. We can review transactions later. And we have a suggestion up here where we can see what is required for us to move this one forward. So all of this, lots of other smaller improvements, but these are just really, really great for us to not get this feedback from our stakeholders, but serve them something where they can say, focus on overall, I think this is a good match for where we want to move this, or give, let's say, higher level and more important feedback to it. So let's say that we're at a point now where everybody's pretty happy with what we built, and we want to move this forward in our PDLC. We want to start handing this off. We have two ways we support that. The first is to Figma, which is the more traditional PDLC, where we just click up here, and we click on Copy to Figma. This is now copied to a clipboard, so when we move in here, we can paste it in. Everything fully editable in layers, as we have it in Figma. So really easy for the design team to come in, pick it up, and continue working with it. Or we can hand it off to a coding agent via MCP. And what that looks like, let me pop back here and grab the link. If I go to Claude and I say, generate a pixel perfect React app from Miro Prototype, Claude is now going to run off, grab the prototype, and turn this into a fully coded React app we can fully interact with and get a feel for how that works. So this is going to take 5 to 8 minutes. So I spent the morning just preparing this quick one, where this is the output we're getting right. Of course, all of the input fields work. We can select all of our interactions here. We can get a feel for how does it work with our bar here when we open that up. Check out the profile. So really just get a full feel for, we came together initially, worked on the concepts, worked on the flows, and then we coded it to make sure we all agree on the smaller details, interactions, and animations. So it's just a very natural step of getting to an aligned vibe-coded output. Amazing. So this is the output we were generating before, right? If you remember from our first screen here with the improvement points, this is the output. I still haven't added to the canvas, where we can see we can do the same things, recent transactions, we can snooze this one. So we have a lot of the same improvement points. It's just generative, so it's never going to look exactly the same. Now we can add this to the canvas here. Awesome. That's the conclusion part of the demos I wanted to show you today, where we've looked at how can we go from a design sprint where we have a problem we want to resolve, create a prototype we all agree on, we all can contribute to and co-create on, and then bring in our own products and add PRDs from different places to those, evolve them, and improve them. So let's try and jump back here to our slides. Whoops. Yeah, so the really important thing here is just to remember we can bring in work in wherever it lives, evolve it with Miro AI, and then hand it back to whatever is the next step in your PDLC. All of what I just showed you is live today. You got a glimpse of this morning what's coming, which is code to Miro and HTML support in Miro, so we can not only, let's say, move from Miro into a vibe-coded solution, we can move from a vibe-coded solution into Miro, compare the different flows, gather the feedback, implement that in the screens, and then hand it back. Much more collaborative, much easier, and frankly, more token-efficient way of gathering feedback and implementing that in the screens. This is in the works, quite far, it's coming very soon, going into beta in June, private beta. Before we wrap up, just want to end where we kind of started, close the circle. So if you could please join again on our little code or on the join link. Would love to just get a little bit of first reactions on, based on what you've seen here today, what are projects where you could see Miro prototypes fitting in? What are things that you find catches your eye? What are gaps you would like to see addressed for this to be more relevant to you? Early alignment, that is absolutely the big one. Divergent designs, yes. OKRs, awesome. Brilliant. We can see a lot more streaming in here. Internal tools is also a really, really big use case for our customers. Amazing. So, a few things you can do today if this is relevant for you or someone else on your team. You can go ahead and start a trial. You can scan this QR and or grab one of the peoples in the demo booth, grab me, and then we can get you set up with access to the product. You can register for the webinar, especially if someone else on your team finds this relevant. You can register for a webinar on June 18th, where we will go deeper into various workflows, prototyping being one of them, where they can get a better feel for what the capabilities are. And finally, any of the Mironeers you see can either answer your questions or point to someone who can. I'm going to be around all day, so feel free to go up and grab me, even though I don't wear a Mironeer t-shirt right now. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for your time and attention.